Hello, everybody. Happy Good Friday. I hope you all are doing very well today. Um, so I thought in celebration of Good Friday, I would read some of the Good Friday story for you all. I know you probably heard this story a million times, and maybe some of you haven't, but if you like, I just wanted to do this. So let's get into it. And yeah, I know my voice sounds high because I'm a nerd. And let's see, right here. Jesus betrayed by Judas, or actually, we're going to start in the Mount of Olives, which is the Garden of Gethsemane. So, after Jesus finishes the Lord's Supper, he goes out to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples follow him. And okay, now we're going to pick up in Luke 22:40. And when he arrived at the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and began to pray, saying, "Father, if thou art willing, remove this cup from me, not my will, but thine be done." And I like this section of the Bible, I guess. Well, no, the section of the chapter, because it shows how Jesus, well, he's also 100% God, he's also 100% man. So it's kind of like he wanted it to be taken away from him. Even he didn't want to go through this. That's how bad this death was really going to be. And we're going to pick up in 47 now, because after the disciples fall asleep, and now, while he was still speaking, behold, a multitude came, and one called Judas, one of the 12 disciples. Now, if you are familiar with the gospel message, you know that Judas is one of his 12 disciples who was in charge of the money, and he betrayed Jesus for 20 pieces of silver. And one called Judas, one of the 12, was preceding them, and he approached Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said to him, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" And then those who were, I'm sorry, I accidentally skipped the page, so sorry. Around him, what was going to happen, they said, "Lord, shall we strike with the sword?" And a certain one of them struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus answered and said, "Stop, no more of this." And he touched his ear and healed him. And Jesus said to the chief priests and officers of the temple and elders who had come against him, "Have you come out with swords and clubs as against a robber? While I was with you daily in the temple, you did not lay hands on me, but this hour and power of darkness are yours." And Jesus, they could have just arrested him in the temple and killed him right on the spot, but no, this is how the gospel is going to be fulfilled. And yeah, that's why they're allowing him to, And having arrested him, they led him away and brought him to the house of the high priest. But Peter was following at a distance, and after they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter was sitting among them. And servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the firelight and looking intently at him, said, "This man was with him too." But he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." And now Jesus denies him here 3 times. And now we're going to skip a little bit. And Jesus goes before the Sanhedrin and he says basically that he is the Son of God. And they do not like that. So now they bring him to Pontius Pilate. And the whole body of them arose and brought him before Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, "We found this man misleading our nation and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, and saying that he himself was Christ the king." And Pilate asked him, saying, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered him and said, "It is as you say." And Pilate said to the chief priests and the multitudes, "I find no guilt in this man." And obviously the Pharisees are not happy about this, so they cause a riot and ask the crowd for him to be crucified. And now we go down all the way here. And Pilate summoned the chief priests and the rulers and said to them, "You brought this man to me as one who incites the people to rebellion. And behold, having examined him before you, I found no guilt in this man regarding the charges which you make against him. And I will therefore punish him and release him." So now Jesus, he has been flogged. So now they want to release a criminal, Barabbas, and they go to flog Jesus with a whip. And this whip was made of iron and had bits of glass in it. It was so bad. And I honestly feel really bad for Jesus because he died. He did this for you, and he did this for me. And he's getting his skin ripped off by like flogs, and it was awful. And they were beating him and spitting in his face. And now, after Pilate sends him to be crucified, and now, and then they take Jesus before Pilate. They take him before Herod, and they give him a crown of thorns. And this was a crown of Bethlehem type thorns from Bethlehem, which stuck into his head and were very painful because they sunk into his head and made him bleed. And now they send him to be on the cross and be crucified. And he is so unrecognizable and so just beat up and bruised that he literally just can't carry the cross. He falls. He's trying to carry this big hunk of wood after being flogged and beaten. And he looked unrecognizable, so this man named Simon carried the cross for him. And when they came to the place called the Skull, where they crucified him and the criminals, one on the right and the other on the left. But Jesus was saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they were doing. And now right here, he's literally asking God to forgive the Pharisees for what they are doing. So they're literally crucifying him, and Jesus is asking them for forgiveness. That's how much Jesus loves us. That's insane. You know? That's a crazy type of love. And that's just incomprehensible. And they hung him on the cross, and they cast lots, dividing up his garments among themselves. And the people stood by looking on, and even the rulers were sneering at him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if this is Christ of God, the chosen one. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming up to him and offering him sour wine, and saying, If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. Now this was also an inscription above him, This is the king of the Jews. And one of the criminals who were hanged there was hurling abuse at him, saying, Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and save us. But the other one on the right answered, rebuking him, said, Do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And what I love here is how, so they put the sign over him, and one of the men rebukes Jesus and mocks him, but the other one is defending him, and he says, We indeed justly, for we are receiving what do we deserve for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. And he was saying, Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. And what's happening here is when Jesus is hanging on the cross, this is very tiring, and this is all happening over the course of 6 hours, where he was hung by his arms. He was hung up by his arms and by his feet, so he had to push himself up to breathe. And it was so painful to breathe, and every time he was basically being suffocated. And oh man, it was really sad. Because it is basically suffocating him. I don't really know how to put this. And now he said to the criminal, Truly I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise. And it was now about the 6th hour, and darkness fell over the whole land until the 9th hour, the sun being obscured in the veil of the temple, which was torn in two. And Jesus crying out with a loud voice, saying, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. And having this, he now breathed his last. And this is basically him crying out to God and saying why has God forsaken him? Because as he's on the cross, he's taking on literally every single sin, everything like lying or swearing or anything bad you would do on himself every person's sins, every 8 billion people that have lived here. He took the sins upon them. And this is his first time being separated from God, and it was very scary for him because he did not know what it was like. And then he breathes his last breath, and I do not know why it does not say this, but he says it is finished. And when he says it is finished, it basically means that all of this was done, and now he has unfortunately died. But he died to save the sins of us. So it's not really unfortunate because he died for us. And now we continue. And now when the Centurion, which is basically one of those soldiers, saw what had happened, he began praising God, saying, "Certainly this man was innocent." And all the multitudes who came together for this spectacle, when they observed what had happened, began to return, beating their breasts. And all his acquaintances and the women who accompanied him from Galilee were standing in a distance at these things. And behold, a man named Joseph, who was a good member of the council, a good and righteous man, he had not been consented to their plan and action, a man from Arimathea, city of the Jews, who was waiting for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. And he took it down and wrapped it in a linen cloth and laid him in a tomb and cut into the rock where no one had ever lain. And this was the preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to begin. Now the woman who had loved him out of Galilee followed after and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. And they returned and prepared the spices and perfumes. And on the Sabbath they rested according to the commandment. And now this is where we're going to leave off because obviously it's Good Friday. So we're not going to go any more further into this because, well, it's good. It's a Good Friday story. And then on Easter, we're going to talk about the greatest miracle that ever happened in the human history. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all for Easter Sunday. Bye.